In this demo, we'll look at the Electrodes tab in both Allego and Videre. Starting out in Allego, we can navigate to the System tab, and we see we have 32 channels on port A. Also in the System tab, we can select the signal map and see the mapping between the data channel index and the probe site. This mapping is defined by our head stage and probe selection. The selection can be modified in the Electrodes tab by clicking directly on the drop-downs. The probes are ordered by number of channels, starting with the fewest and ending with the total number of channels on the port. You can change the selection by clicking. The head stage can be changed similarly. And if you know exactly which head stage or probe you want, you can type directly in the text field. If you select a probe with fewer sites than the total number of sites on your head stage, then you'll see another button appear where you can add another probe to the port. The display size of the sites can be modified with the buttons in the bottom right. You can navigate between probes in the same port with these arrow icons. We can navigate to the System tab and to the signal map. And as you can see, our first 4 sites correspond to the tetrode, and then the next 16 are to the Buzaki 16 probe. The rest of the sites are still going to be recorded to disk, but they will not appear in the Electrodes tab or the Monitor tab. I've now modified Allego to have 32 channels on port A and on port B. We can verify this in the signal map, where both port A and B are represented. You can edit the head stage and probe selection on each port separately. There are a couple advanced options to the right. The first is use local devices. By default, Allego will fetch the probe and head stage files from the cloud, but if you have this selected, then it will force it to look in your devices folder on your local machine. The other checkbox is the probe spans multiple ports, which does exactly that. In this case, we have 32 channels on port A and B, so this allows us to select a probe that with 64 channels and have it span both of those. In this case, we would change our head stage to a 64 channel head stage, and then change the probe as well. When we make this selection, we can check port B, which has the exact same selection, and that's because this probe and head stage spans both ports. When streaming and/or recording, the probe and head stage are unable to be modified. We'll load our file into Videre, and the probe and head stage by default cannot be modified. You can edit the sensor configuration and modify the probe and head stage selection just like in Allego. You must hit apply to apply these changes. In Videre, you also have the option to upload a custom sensor. These are defined with a CSV file. As you can see, if you're using a custom sensor, then you have to have use local devices checked, which will be checked automatically. Videre also gives you access to the GPIO channels, which can be selected and deselected. Here's an example of a custom electrode definition. This has 16 channels and includes X and Y coordinates, as well as wireframe coordinates. The native index and the site number columns are the two required columns. The rest are optional and will override the defaults if specified. More details on the CSV specification can be found on our documentation.